His leadership of the organization is superb. In fact, we discussed it. I was reminding him when he visited Ghana with the former president of Brazil, Lula da Silva. I was president of Ghana then. And Dr. Graciano was introduced to me as the minister in Brazil who, in a way, had worked the magic of lifting millions of people out of poverty into middle income in the short space of time. So even then, I was sort of mesmerized. I said, how could he do it? Then later, he sought the office of Director General of FAO. And so far, he's been performing wonderfully. He carries himself as a true leader, and he comes across as a true technocrat who has also got the feeling to help people. He's a citizen of the world. It fits in. I also met him in Equatorial Guinea not too long ago, at Malabo, when the African Union had a summit. I went earlier this year, and he was there, involving himself with people, talking solutions. And he's done well. I believe he's a fantastic global leader. My term of office, as you remember, almost coincided with the term of office of Lula. He was pushing to lift his people out of poverty, generally. And when I also assumed office 2001, I found the economy of Ghana was in shambles. I come from cocoa growing area of Ghana. In fact, my people have been involved in cocoa growing and also trading. Time I was aware, we grew up, that was my family. And the farmers were not happy time I was getting into office. And incidentally, the manifesto with which I entered office was that my government would lead the country into the golden age of business, to grow the economy, or regrow the economy, and also ensure that the democracy of Ghana would be property-owning democracy for the people. So when I got in and the economy was in shambles, the nation was overladen with debt. Quickly, my government and I had to think fast, and we saw that within the 4-year term of office, which to me is too short, we needed to take a very drastic measure, and that was to take the highly indebted poor countries initiative to seek the support of the multilaterals, IMF, World Bank. We did that, and on the undertaking that we would discipline the macroeconomy, government would cut back on indiscriminate borrowing, government would allow space with the banks for the private sector. We did that. And additionally, we looked at the cocoa sector because the farmers had started cutting down their cocoa trees to go into citrus and other things that gave them more money than cocoa. Then I got the advice that the cocoa farmers, were so displeased because they were being taxed something like almost 60% of the world price of cocoa. And since they themselves had acquired their land and had cultivated the farms without support of state, they couldn't understand. That's why they wanted to get out of cocoa. So what to do? My government then decided to show appreciation for the service the cocoa farmers had done for the country over the previous 100 years by reversing the share of the international market price, which had prevailed before we assumed office. That share gave the state 60% of the world price, to the farmer just 40%. My government said, no, give the 60% to the farmer and the state to take 40%. Additionally, let the state show appreciation for the long service that the farmer had done by state undertaking to spray all the cocoa farms indiscriminately for the farmers with pesticides, and also give subsidized fertilizers for farmers to enrich. We did these things, a combination of things. And truly, from a low of 320,000 tons of beans in 2001, by 2004-05, the produce had more than doubled to over 730,000 tons. Magical. The farmers were happy, and there was money everywhere. There was a ripple effect into other aspects of the economy. And Ghana jumped from a low of $400 per capita to $1,300 per capita by 2007. And the whole world hailed Ghana. So this is how it happened with Ghana. But on the Brazilian front too, as I said, Dr. Graziano and his government had also lifted over 28 million people from poverty into middle income. But it's within the same time. I believe this is why 2011, both Lula and myself were given the World Food Prize. Together, we shared the prize together in 2011. Agricultural field, we've been pushing for diversification of agriculture because we've got the lands. Even in the savanna areas that are good for cereals and things like that, I believe the public sector should see itself as the infrastructure, should provide the infrastructure for the private sector, which is farmers, to grow efficiently. And this the public sector can do by pursuing integrated rural development as basis for modernized and commercialized agriculture. When I say integrated rural development, we talk of opening up the rural areas with network of roads, motorable roads, supply of electricity, potable water, citing strategically educational institutions and health care areas for the benefit of farmers, extending credits, affordable credits to the farmer with extension services that would impart education in agriculture to the farmers so they know when to plant, especially with the uncertainty coming with the climate change. They know when to plant, how to manage harvesting, storage, marketing. All these things should come together. But the farmer cannot do it without the cooperation of the... So these are the things I believe other countries can do. The change is coming so fast that the only way the world is coming around to accept as the way forward is mastery of science and technology. When I say science, science pertaining to keeping steps ahead of the curve of change in everything society or human community can do. And so the global community must pull together. Fortunately, there's the intergovernmental panel on climate change of scientists from all over the world advising the United Nations and the world body, giving reports from time to time. And I believe all governments should buy into that and know how they can lead their people into adjusting, adapting to the change. There is mitigation on the things to do so as to mitigate the impact of the change on the lives of people. It's not only in agriculture, but in all aspects of life, because climate change is overarching on human life. And since we learned from the scientists that unless we get the overheating under 2 degrees Celsius by a time limit within, say, the next 2 decades, unless we do that, then the overheating may get out of control altogether And by mid-century, life may not be as the same as we've known it so far. So this is what, and for agriculture in particular, because of unpredictability of the change, and also when it rains, it floods, destroying subsoils and crops. When it's dry, the drought is so severe, it cracks up the land. There's nothing anybody. We should, in the developing world, should work closely with science, be advised through research, and government should lead the way to empowering the people to adjust, to adapt, or mitigate. We know that is the burning of fossil fuels in the main that has contributed to the change so dramatically. But in Africa, for instance, we have so much solar power, which should be sort of converted into generating electricity. We have so many water courses that we could use to do hydro. These are renewables, and they do not spew the poisonous gases, if I may use the word poisonous gases, that cause the overheating. So the renewables are the things to do, whilst at the same time we replant much of the forests we've destroyed. Because the forests feed on carbon dioxide, for instance. But when you've destroyed it, the carbon hangs in the air, destroys the ozone, and then the sun hits directly. This should be the developing world's contribution to arresting climate change, or to containing climate change. So these are things to do. They are so important because they constitute the main population of the countries in which they operate. In Ghana, for example, over 60% of our people are on the land. Small farmers, family farmers, man, wife, children, they all work the land, and they contribute most of the food. Perhaps not too efficiently, because they do more subsistence agriculture. But if they constitute the majority of the population, and say the state helps to improve their conditions of work and helps to make them efficient as farmers. Talking of climate smart agriculture, for instance, if the state can help extend the know-how to them, they produce better. Say per 1 hectare of land, if they can get twice or 3 times the crop they've been getting traditionally, it's the state's, not just the farming family, but the state as a whole that will benefit. The economy is enriched. And so they are very important in the developing world, just as they are important even in the developed world. We learned that about 95% of the food everywhere is produced by the family farmers. And since humanity moves on its stomach, just like the proverbial army moving on its stomach, which is food, the people who produce the food are central, very important. And this is why the family farms must be treated with respect and support.